Welcome to your first lesson on Kicking It with Corey, hashtag math swag. So, what we're going to do today is we're going to try to demystify this decimal fraction percent business by showing you exactly how they all are the exact same thing. For example, did you know that 50% is the same as 1/2, which is the same as 0.5? They're definitely the exact same thing because 50% of something is half, which is a fraction, which is also the same thing as 0.5. Those all represent the exact same thing. We have words or pictures, we have a fraction, we have a percent, and we have a decimal, all representing the exact same thing. Let's look a little bit deeper into why this is the case. Starting with decimal to a percent. How do we make a decimal into percent to show that it's the same thing? The example here helps us out quite a bit. We take a decimal. In this case, we see 0.34. We multiply that decimal by 100, and we end up getting 34%. Some of you might notice that this is the exact same thing because we've moved the decimal over 2 spots. So instead of having 0.34, we then change to 34 and add a percent sign. The reason we do that is when we multiply by 100, we're both basically multiplying 2 place values, or 100. Okay, so 0.34 is the same as 34%. Now, moving on to changing a percent to a decimal. It's basically the exact same thing, but instead of multiplying, we're going to divide. So, as I see here, we're going to take 78.6%, which equals 78.6 divided by 100. So we look at this, we have 78.6 divided by 100. So, if we multiplied by 100 and our decimal moved to the right 2 spots, what do you think is going to happen if we divide by 100? Is our decimal going to move to the right, or is our decimal going to move to the left? Correct, our decimal is going to move to the left. So this then would be 0.786. Why? Because when we look at our decimal, we're moving from here 2 spots to here, ending up with 0.768. Or 786 thousandths. Okay, moving right along. Now we're going to learn how to convert a fraction to a percent. So what you want to do is you want to set up an equivalent fraction using 100 as the denominator. The numerator then is the percent. So looking at the example here, they have 4/5. They've multiplied that by our giant 1, which is 20 over 20, because 5 times 20 equals 100, which is that getting the denominator of 100 like they told us here. And then ultimately what we end up with in the numerator is our percentage. 4 times 20 is 80, therefore we have 80%. Now, I want you to go ahead and take a look at this one here, converting percent to a fraction. What are some things that you notice? So, looking at this one, what are the things that you noticed? I noticed that we're still using a giant 1, and we still have a denominator over 100, which is completely true. 22%, we know, based upon the last problem, is basically the exact same thing as writing 22 over 100. This is a fraction. That is our fraction. And all they're showing us here is the simplification. they're multiplying by a 1/2 over a 1/2, which is the same thing as dividing by 2 over 2. 22 divided by 2 is 11. 100 divided by 2 is 50. Same thing as 122 times by 1/2, which is 22 over 2, which equals 11. Same thing. Now we're going to look more specifically at terminating decimal to a fraction. Read this with me as I read it aloud. So we're going to make the digits the numerator. Then we're going to use the decimal place value as the denominator, and we're going to simplify as needed. Basically what that means is we're going to read this first number as we would read it in general. So this isn't 0.2, it's actually 2/10, which helps us understand how we can write that as a fraction. You'll see here we have 2/10. You can either keep it as 2/10 or you can simplify it down to 1/5. That's your choice. Lastly, we have a fraction to a decimal. So the biggest thing to understand here is what this bar right here means. We can say 3 over 8, we can say 3 bar 8, you can say whatever you want, but really what that line means is divided by. And if we replace divided by with the actual division symbol, we get 3 divided by 8. And if we do that problem, we end up with 0.375. So you'll notice here, being able to use the correct mathematic vocabulary is important, because if you recognize, for example, that this is read as 2/10, you can easily transfer that to a fraction. If you read this as 3 divided by 8, and you know the mathematical symbol for division, you can easily transfer this to 3 divided by 8 to get your answer. If you totally understood today's lesson, I want you to go ahead and like it. If you didn't, please comment so I can help with another video. And thank you for tuning in to today's lesson. I'll see you next time.